Do you have what it takes to be a tourism translator? Coming up. Hello and welcome back to the Freelanceverse. Thanks for being here, thanks for coming back to the channel. It is time for another specialized episode on the channel. This time I invited 3 panelists to talk about tourism translation. Tourism seems to be a very highly requested and highly sought after translation specialization. I see it all the time in my comments coming up, also in messages, and I think it makes sense. I mean, tourism, traveling, it's kind of linked. Who doesn't like it, right? So if you can manage to combine that aspect of life with your work, that can be an amazing career. I'm about to have the conversation with the panelists. Can't wait to share this with you. But first, as always, this episode is brought to you by MemoQ. Thank you so much, MemoQ, for sponsoring the Specialized series. MemoQ Translator Pro is a tool specifically for translators that helps them increase their productivity, improve their translation quality, and to meet tight deadlines. If you're interested in their product or their company, make sure to click the link below that leads directly to their landing page and you can check them out. Now let's get on with the interview. So, hello everybody, we are back with another episode of Specialized. Today we talk about tourism. If you've missed any of the previous episodes, I'm going to link the playlist down below so you can check all the countless, I've lost count at that point how many I've done, but today I'm very excited to talk to Silvie, Fiona and Lisa. Hello everyone, thanks for taking the time. Could you please start by introducing yourself? Lisa, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Lisa. I'm French and English to Dutch translator. And with Dutch, I mean Dutch for Belgium. I only translate for Belgium. I specialize in marketing translations for, on the one hand, education companies, and on the other hand, everything that revolves around tourism, education, tourism culture, things like that.
Silvie?
Hi, I'm Silvie. I'm from the Netherlands. I work from English into Dutch, Dutch for the Netherlands, not like Lisa. I specialize in marketing translations and tourism translations and tourism, travel, hospitality, everything that's related to that specialization.
We're covering all the Dutch speakers today, that's nice. And Fiona?
Hi, I'm Fiona. I'm going to mix it up a bit and I'm an English translator. My source language is German. I'm based in the UK, near Cambridge, and I specialise in marketing and tourism translation as well.
Very interesting. So I hear there seems to be, I mean, this is a question that I wanted to come back to later, but you both, or I think all of you mentioned that you also do marketing, right? Is that kind of interwoven, marketing and tourism, Lisa, you would say?
I think marketing is not necessarily tourism, but tourism does require the same level of creativity you would need for marketing. So when I started out as a tourism translator, I did a lot of newsletters, magazine articles for tourism magazines, tourism newsletters, things like that, and it was very creative all the time. The main guideline clients gave me was don't translate literally, make it your own text, make it your own translation. I could add sentences, I could switch around things, add words, delete words and everything. And that's something I also do in marketing. So for me, it felt natural to do both at the same time, to, on the one hand, specialize in marketing, but also specialize in tourism culture, things like that. I think for me, marketing really is like websites, social media, brochures and everything, whereas tourism, it's more storytelling. It's longer text. There's usually like a story to be told. Whereas marketing can be very short posts and everything.
Yeah, I think for me, marketing is broader. It's like every company does marketing or should do marketing. A lot of translators, including myself, say that they're specialized in marketing. I think on the one hand, yes, like Lisa said, it's like a very creative genre, I guess, but on the other hand, it's just also a way of translating, I guess, like very creatively. But the topic, the actual text, it can be about for any company, and it can be I don't know, for a company who say they would like to hire people, or they have a marketing campaign to get more employees, or it can be a holiday destination guide, or it can be anything. So for me, it's more of an umbrella term, more or less.
Most of the people watching this series are people that are trying to figure out if this is potentially a specialization for them, right? Fiona, what would you say are kind of the backgrounds that one would need, all like personally, professionally, academically, whatever, to go into this area?
For me, what Lisa and Silvie have said there about the kind of crossover and links between marketing and tourism translation leads nicely into that, because I always think of it as there's this kind of creative thread running through all my work in both of those areas, and I think that creativity is so important. And I think people can get those creative skills in different ways. So just working on your target language writing skills and being able to write well in your target language is such an important skill for tourism translation. And interest in travel and tourism and culture more broadly, an interest in all of the different areas of tourism. And then I think academically, I don't know, I have a master's in literary translation, and then I've obviously not gone into literary translation, but those creative skills that I picked up in that period of study have really helped me later down the line in a different way. So I guess it's pulling on those creative skills that people wouldn't necessarily need a master's to get. You could do maybe a copywriting course, other courses in writing well.
Interesting. Yeah. What caused this switch from literary to tourism in your case?
I decided not to go into literary translation, but to hold on to the kind of values and the creativity. And I started working in-house at a translation agency, actually, and they specialised in marketing translation. And I was thinking back ahead of this conversation, and I remember that actually my first project that I translated at that agency was for a luxury cruise ship. It was a brochure, and I think maybe that stuck with me, and I enjoyed it so much, and I just felt like it was like such extreme marketing, like the oozing luxury and trying to encourage and entice people to come on board the luxury cruise ship, and I just enjoyed it so much, and it's progressed from there, I guess.
I feel like English is always the ideal language for all these like very marketing luxury type of languages, right? I always find it so tough to write these texts in German because it just sounds so fake most of the times, right? So it's really difficult, I feel like, to make this switch. So I guess for you translate from German to English, so you have to add this kind of flowery language, this many repetitions, right? Okay. I can see how this is more fun than the other way.
Yeah, so much fun.
What I would say skills that translators would need to work in tourism and culture is definitely very good research skills. Because, for example, my most recent project was an exposition on Mesopotamia, and it has a lot of archaeological things, like ancient objects that existed millions of years back, thousands of years back, sorry. But they don't exist anymore. And usually sometimes you get a picture, but not always. You have this vague term, and you don't find a lot of information on the internet, and you have to know what to do. How do you find the right term? How do you know what it is? You should be able to research it, maybe go to the library sometimes, ask questions to your clients. Don't be afraid to ask for pictures. I think that's also very important, that you have the necessary research skills, that you know how to research things on Google, library, ask your client, things like that.
Yeah, I agree. I use Google a lot, mostly for tourism translation, more than any other type of translations I do. And it's nice to learn stuff because you get paid to learn things. I like that. And but also, I don't know for you guys, but for me, my travel wish list keeps growing all the time. Because I keep wanting to go to all these destinations that I translate about.
Yeah, me. So I think it's also nice when you translate tourism texts is that when you're translating on a destination, like something in the mountains or something really beautiful, then the first thing I do is just look up pictures. I look up a video and just look at it, like to have a feel like, what is it? And you're like, oh, it's so gorgeous. And you want to add the same feeling of amazement into your text.
That can change the whole vibe, right? If you're translating for, I don't know, for like a treehouse hotel rather than a luxury hotel, it's completely different copy and style and register. Okay.
Yeah.
One thing that I was thinking about preparing for this video, I also let you guys know in previously, like when you really think about it, you could say that literally anything can be tourism related, right? Because we translate for other cultures, visitors of some kind to understand, right? And Lisa, you mentioned this project. It sounds more like a perfect for a historian or something, right? Rather than tourism. So how do you, maybe Silvie, you can start off. How do you define tourism for you? What is it you're actually working on?
For me, it's like specific text about destinations or a cruise line or a hotel chain or something like that. And so it involves travel, and
Involves travel. Okay.
Yeah, if you look at it, it's culture and tourism. They're connected, but not exactly the same. So.
And who would you work for then mostly? Is it companies in the travel industry, or do you work with agencies?
Both. I work with some travel agencies or tourism boards, and also translation agencies that give me jobs. Like that's usually for the big companies in travel. They use translation agencies, and then there's smaller companies that I work with directly.
And for Fiona and Lisa, how is it for you? Text types, clients, how does your everyday workflow look like? Fiona, maybe you can take that one.
Yeah, so I also work with a mixture of translation agencies and direct clients. So I started off working on hotel content copy, I'd say, through translation agencies, and then I've gradually kind of diversified my client base and brought in more direct clients. And I was trying to think of them all and kind of write a list in my head, and it's quite nice because it's so varied. So I've got one client who has a website and she reviews kind of the main tourist attractions and kind of hidden gems in different cities around Europe. And she has this in website articles, and then has brought in a blog as well. So that's a couple of different text types. And I also get to work on content about say Rome and Paris, which I don't normally get to do working from German to English. So I like this client a lot, so I get to explore different places. And then also another direct client I've worked with fairly recently, I translated a travel guide. So it was for a city that was the European City of Culture last year, in 2022, and I translated the whole guide. And actually, if I could just do a little bit of self-promotion, I went there last week on holiday and I went to the tourist office and I found a copy.
Oh,
and
that's
it has
cool.
my name in it, and it was so exciting.
No way.
I just walked
That's
in
so
and
nice.
they found it for me. It was really cool. But so yeah, that's an actual physical book, like an actual chunky copy that I can hold in my hand. And then also travel magazines, which are kind of similar.
And Lisa, what area do you work in?
So when I started out, I worked a lot for travel agencies, but mostly via translation agencies with my clients, like direct clients. They were travel agencies or also like a cruise operator I worked for. But at the moment, I mainly work with museums, so I don't necessarily do the travel things anymore, but I really focus on museums more and more, and cultural stuff. So with museums, that's a bit special because it also goes through a translation agency, but it's a very small agency, and I'm on very good terms with the agency. And at least in my country, in Belgium, many museums are governed by the government, and so all translations go through tenders. So when a museum, like once every 5 years, they think ahead, like, oh, we might need that many words or that many expositions translated, and then they publish a tender, which is visible for anyone. And then the agency, me and then another translator, someone who translates into English, we apply together. We do test translation, we follow the whole procedure, and then so far we managed to win a few tenders, which is really nice. And that's how we get to work for museums.
Wow,
as well.
that's
I
great.
think in different countries,
that's a long process, huh?
It is a long process and also scary because right now we have a tender for a museum and it's 5 years. So for 5 years, we know that we will get all the translations, but we also know in advance how much it will be because it's written in a tender. So it's going to be like 3 or 4 expositions, something, which is a nice volume. It's really nice. But then as soon as those 5 years are finished, like you have to reapply. And the thing with tenders is price is the main criterion. You can't quote too high. Let's say, because there will always be other agencies who will offer quite low rates, and then quality is not very good, and then it can get quite competitive working for museums.
Silvie, it sounds like you are working very much in the area where what I would imagine a tourism translator does, right? You work for destinations, for cruises, for traveling. How do you manage to keep up to date with cultural phenomena, cultural shifts in the countries that you work in? So you translate into Dutch, right? So is your tourism, is your destinations usually in the Netherlands, or is it more in your source languages?
Well, it can be anywhere, really. I mean, not so much in the Netherlands, but more like cities like Dubai, or cruise itineraries that go around the world, or just a river cruise in Europe, or I travel a lot. My business name is the Traveling Translator. I'm off to Prague next week, actually. But
really? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, usually if you translate for a translation agency, then usually you just get instructions like for Dubai, they ask like, do not use the word alcohol, or don't promote alcohol, just use the word drinks or something like that.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and then mostly I suppose it's just in the source text already, like those words, they won't use the word alcohol in the source text, so then you don't need to use it necessarily in your translation.
I guess like a destination like Dubai or anywhere with more conservative values, they would also not want to promote different values even in publications in the Netherlands, right? It makes sense, yeah. But that's an interesting point that you mentioned. So there you mostly rely on the briefs from the clients?
Yeah, the briefs and what I know myself about the translations or destinations, sorry.
One thing that I thought about when preparing, tourism was extremely affected by COVID, right? I don't know, Fiona, were you already a tourism translator during COVID?
I did tourism translation, but through translation agencies and also alongside lots of other marketing translation. Okay. So I didn't take the hit because it wasn't my sole kind of specialism. Yeah. So I would say the tourism translation obviously dropped off in 2020, but I had other work, so I didn't notice that as in the way that some other translators might have. But I think what I did notice was then in 2021, as tourism kind of kicked back in after the main peak of the pandemic, that's when I got contacted by direct clients. But 2021, middle of 2021 is when the work started coming in. So I kind of got the benefits after, I suppose. And then I think from there, I've done more and more tourism translation as the industry's kind of built itself back up and kind of recovered.
I always tell people when I talk about these times that actually my profession was one that was almost positively affected by the whole thing. I had more work than before, but I assume in tourism it was the opposite. So if someone solely focused on that, right? I don't know, Silvie and Lisa, did you experience any drop in revenue or work?
Not in revenue or work, but like Fiona, the amount of tourism translations dropped a little bit, but then I got more other types of translations in return. And also very interesting, some of my tourism clients, they kept giving me work, but it wasn't about hotel descriptions anymore, but now this time it was about cleaning, how they or like what COVID measures they would take, and
true.
For an Airbnb or something. Or
for me, it was actually funny because before COVID, I was not yet working for museums, but was mainly working for like travel. One of my biggest clients at the time was through a translation agency, was a cruise operator. And with COVID, all cruises were suspended for a very long time, I think even longer than hotels and travel in general. And that client never came back. So all of my travel clients, those collaborations ended suddenly with COVID. But the funny thing is that all of a sudden, my museum clients, they were like, oh, you know what? We're going to have new expositions once COVID is over. So you have like a bunch of new expositions. Oh, you know what? We had this brochure we drafted like 20 years ago. We want to redo the brochure for the whole museum. You can do this. I was like, what is happening?
Exactly. Yeah. Organically, one door closed and one opened. I guess that's
like that.
how it works. So you would suggest to people to keep always some kind of door open, not focus fully on a very small niche, and then it might always disappear. I always tell people of course niche down, but keep some back door open. You can do some generalist things. You can have 2 specializations. Exactly.
I think 2 niches is really nice, because there's some like also with COVID, like everything that's medical and financial suddenly was soaring. Then you also have like the crash with 2008 financial as well was soaring, whereas other translations were diminishing and everything. So there's always like no matter what is happening, there's always 1 or 2 or 3 topics that are doing really well and others that are hit. So if you have 2 niches, for example, which is perfectly manageable, I think, like they're closely related. For example, I do tourism, culture, but also education. A lot of the museums I translate for, and on the one hand, they have the exposition that has to be translated, but they also have education packs for schools. They have games for children and everything. So that's also education.
Yeah, and I think if you work for agencies, they keep sending you work if they like your work as a translator, and they're like, I know this is not your area of expertise, but maybe would you like to try this or that? And I got a lot of HR all of a sudden, and it's like, hey, you want to try that? Do you think you can do that? And
exactly.
it happens naturally. So
exactly, it happens organically, and usually when this happens, it's, I don't know, it's either like before the holidays or before Christmas or on a Friday when the PM gets stressed, right? And suddenly, can you help me with this? And sometimes I have to say, no, I can't do this contract for you. I mean, that's insane. But if it's not extremely specialized, then you might open a new avenue, right? Yeah. So we have to already close this. This went so quickly, but I always like to finish off these videos with a word of advice from our seasoned professionals. So Fiona, what would you tell the viewers, or what would you tell to yourself, the younger self, that you wish you knew before?
Don't underestimate the power of word of mouth. I was thinking about where all these clients, all my tourism clients, and all the really cool projects that I've done, where they came from. And most of them I can track back to either a recommendation, or the client's been happy and they've referred me to someone else, or a translation colleague has referred me onto someone who's contacted them. So I think make sure everyone knows what you do, tell everyone who'll listen, shout about what you do, and build your network of colleagues, and be part of the translation community.
And Fiona is also excellent in branding. You should all check her branding. I really like what she does. So
thank you.
And Silvie, your words of advice?
Kind of the same, actually. Just get out there, let people know what you do. Use LinkedIn, post on there, and also connect with people, not only other translators, but also people in your field. So in translation, in the travel industry, and also try to attend conferences and network events to see your colleagues in real life. And because if they know who you are in person and they like you, then they're also likely to offer you work if they have too much and they're like, okay, maybe I'm going on vacation, maybe Silvie can be my replacement, or things like that. So just get out there and don't be shy.
Yeah. It always comes back to networking. I got a funny message yesterday from a subscriber, and she said, I love your videos, but I hate it so much. You always say how important networking is, but I'm such an introvert. Why does this have to be the most important thing? And I just told her, we are all introverts. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, we don't bite.
Yeah. And Lisa, to finish off the video.
I think I'm going to give two pieces of advice. The first one being, as Silvie and Fiona say, network. You'll notice actually the tourism field is very small, as in everyone goes to the same events. Every country hosts a few tourism conferences a year, and you notice everyone goes to those conferences. All tourism providers go to those conferences, so be there. Once you're in the field, you notice like everyone knows each other. So as Fiona said, word of mouth then spreads very quickly. And my second piece of advice is don't be afraid to contact a more experienced translator and ask for feedback on your translations. That helped me a lot when I started out. Tourism can get quite creative, and when I just finished school, I was translating like word per word, kind of like that. I was afraid to move around words and everything. I was really nervous to do that. I was like, oh, what is the client going to think? It's not going to be not going to be literal. But then there's a translator who really showed me like, no, you can do this and maybe you can translate it like this. And she gave me a lot of feedback on my translation, showed me how I can make things more creative, how I can play around with words. And that really helped me in terms of quality to really see like, oh, this is a good tourism translation. Oh, yes, I can do this, or I didn't think about this, or this is a good resource. Just reach out to a more experienced translator, ask for feedback, ask for help, for resources, for tips. And that helped me a lot.
That's great advice. And it ties into what I always say. Of course, I'm going to link all you people's links down below. So if anyone watching wants to reach out, I'm sure you're more than willing to help. Thanks so much to all three of you. This was fantastic. And thanks to everyone at home for watching. Let me know in the comments which specialization I should do next. I see you next Monday with the next video. Bye-bye.